with each draft, the thing about doing a draft on a story, you want each draft to be very distinct from the other draft work that you do on the story. You don't just do a third or fourth draft very much the same way as all the others. Each draft is, you put on a different lens to look at the story. So each draft focuses on certain things. I want to talk about one of these lenses. I want to talk about one of these ways of writing a draft. What it is to be very aware about what the reader's journey is through that story. Let's say that you've written a short story, you wrote the first draft, which is basically an outline, you wrote the second draft where you went in and started to furnish the apartment, so to speak, to go in and fill in, what that world is like and what the characters look like, act like, that sort of thing. And that was your second draft. And you've put the story away for the while. It's always good to have different writing projects and put them away, because it kind of clears the memory, and you can go to that story almost in a way like a new person. And so you're ready to start the third draft. So the exercise I propose is, at your workplace where you do your writing, write down the reader's journey. Tape it up by your monitor, wherever you can look at it, and recognize when you start on the first line, your focus is going to be the writer's journey. This is very much about timing. This is very much about focusing primarily on what the reader doesn't know, what the reader has not found out yet, what you don't want. If you have a surprise at the end, you want to make it so that when the surprise happens it makes sense, but you need to be aware of the possibilities. Do some guessing about whether or not there are a lot of readers who will figure it out before you want them to. And you want to ask the questions and think about the story in the way that, as much as possible, you can be the reader going through the story. And so while you're reading it, ask yourself, are there things that I know but I haven't told the reader yet? Are there things that I understand about these characters, but I just happen to not have put it in the story? I haven't written it down. And when you think about the reader's journey, think about it as happening in time. It's a very linear process. When writing is like music, you start at the beginning and you go to the end. See, what happens is we have a story that we're excited about and we enjoy writing about it, and we're already there. It's already happening for us in our imagination, but we may not realize that we have not put enough in the story to make the reader excited about the story. And so by paying attention while you're reading your story, try to imagine from the evidence, from the information you've given the reader so far at each point in the story, try to take a step back and imagine what they can figure out about what's going on only from what you've told them. So when you're writing the story, it could be taking place in a very stormy, landscape, and while you're writing it, you're very excited about this, but have not placed that enough in the story for the reader to get really excited about what that place feels like. And remember, this is a drafting process. You're going to be better at it if you put off other types of drafting, if you put off doing a show not tell draft on the work, or put off a purely grammar and spelling draft on the work and really focus on trying to second guess what the reader's experience is like. For each scene, I have questions that I ask myself. What new information has the reader found out? What do they not know yet? As an example, they don't know yet that there's one character who's very ambitious, but in 3 scenes from now, that ambition is going to turn rotten. When I'm looking at the scene, the questions I ask are, what does the reader need to know? What can I put in this scene where can I place some of the explanatory material that I need to draw the reader into the story? What don't I need to tell them? What is chaff that I can cut away from the story that's just bogging it down, that's not necessary for this scene? When I'm looking at the scene, the questions I ask are, what does the reader need to know? What can I put in this scene where can I place some of the explanatory material that I need to draw the reader into the story? What don't I need to tell them? What is chaff that I can cut away from the story that's just bogging it down, that's not necessary for this scene? Am I giving the reader a clear enough of a picture? If there is a mystery in the story, as an example, you're writing a story where you don't want the reader to quite figure out if it's a ghost in the story, or if it's computer generated, or if it's just one of the characters' psychosis. If there's a mystery, how much am I giving them enough to keep them interested that they will eventually figure it out? Am I confusing the reader? The best teachers are people who can second guess where their students are at, and what their students know and don't know, and what is the best information that the teachers can give to the students. Now, a great writer is someone who can second guess where the reader is at. And for me, I really like to go ahead and just have it dedicated to one draft, because that way I can forget about all the other editing and really focus on that, and because it's that important to the story. Some things that may turn up from doing this draft work, I'll give an example. If I'm working on a scary story and I know the whole story, so for me everything that happens, the gradual development, can be very thrilling, but then I do a draft on it and I realize, well, the reader may not be frightened because they don't know what happens at the end. They don't know the final conclusion. So by anticipating the reader's journey, I could either give the 10 minutes before the final conclusion, go ahead and bring that back to the beginning of the story. That's used a lot these days, and it's effective. Now, when I'm second guessing the reader, I usually have maybe like 3 readers that I keep in mind. I have an imagined reader who would pretty much need everything explained to them, who is not that great with mystery, is not that great with figuring things out. Pretty much you need to walk them through everything and basically, basically cut up their food for them on their plate and serve it to them. Then I have the super readers. I have someone who are like these detectives who can figure everything out, who are the most likely to guess what's going to happen before I have a chance to effectively surprise them with my story. And then there's the middle ground. There's the reader who has all the ideas about what could happen, and if you give them enough of the information, they can form a pretty clear picture about what is happening in the story. And along the way, they're not going to understand everything, but that's okay, as long as the information that you do give them does seem like it's starting to fall together in a way that makes sense. It's like a puzzle that's slowly falling together, and as long you're not going to have all the pieces till the end, but as long as it makes sense as it's going along, even though there are pieces missing. Most fiction needs some explaining. There needs to be some explaining about the sort of like the metaphysics of the fictional world, or maybe like the politics of that fictional town they're in, or you know, some of the background information that's necessary to the story. And when you're doing this draft,